Hello everybody, how are you doing? It's Amanda. What is today? Today is the 29th of April 2020 and I was intending to do a different reading today. I was going to be doing a reading on duality, but to be perfectly honest, I'm not feeling it today. You have to be at the right energy level to be able to bring through teaching on that because it's so important. Particularly now, it's so important that I get the words right on it. And Metatron is actually breaking it down for me into 11 points that I need to bring through as teaching. And he says it's never more needed, but equally the timing is critical. So I thought it was going to be today because today's the 29th, 2 and 9 make 11. We're back to that whole Metatron energy. Seems to feel good in terms of looking at light and darkness. But he's actually saying we need the energy of May to bring this to being, particularly Beltane. So that's what I'm going to be aiming for now, a video towards then. May Day is a weird one this year, and I don't know whether this won't be for everybody around the world, but certainly for people in the UK, I am assuming other parts of Europe. Normally we celebrate May Day on the first Monday of a month, but this year May Day is actually Friday the 8th, and they've changed it. It's a Friday, and it's to coincide with the 75th anniversary of Victory in Europe Day. So I think that's another video on its own as well, looking into the energy of that. But anyway, it's not what we're doing today. What we're doing today is we're just going to have a catch up. I'm going to see how we're all doing. And I'm going to fill you in with a little bit about what's been going on around here. First off, aren't these flowers beautiful? Look at these. I mean, how stunning is that? You see, you can't compete with nature. Just look at that. Isn't that beautiful? They smell amazing as well. Lovely. Yeah, Boris has just had his baby, or he hasn't, his wife has. In fact, the child, I just had a little look at the numerology. The baby was born on the 29th, so it's actually got some really powerful numerology behind it. It's a boy, so he has got some very powerful numerology behind him. He works out as a 29, 10 stroke 1 energy. 29 is the Olympic spiritual athlete energy. 10 is linked into the Wheel of Fortune. Number 1 is an energy to do with leadership and the sun. So this boy is very strong energetically, and I suspect will have some sort of impact going forward. In terms of his link with Boris and Carrie, he's actually more linked to his mother than he is to Boris, purely in terms of the numerology. Carrie, his mum, comes out as a 10 stroke 1 in terms of numerology as well. So there's a direct link between the baby and the mum. They're both 10 stroke 1. So they both seem to be important in terms of having a role to play in terms of turning the wheel. Certainly with Carrie, I've mentioned this before in other videos, she's quite a strong animal rights supporter, and she speaks up against animal cruelty. So maybe she's going to do even more of that going forward into the future. I'm hearing she will. And it was interesting. I just did a very small little meditation for myself, but I often get stuff for the collective that comes through as well. And Metatron showed me, or reminded me, of the pictures coming out of Spain over the last few days. And it showed these children who were able to go outside for the first time in 41 days. So in Spain, the children have been locked up for 41 days, not able to go outside. I assume if you've got a garden, you could go into your garden. But unlike, for example, the UK, I've always noticed when I go to places like Spain, Italy, France, there seem to be a lot more apartments and big blocks. So a lot of these kids had no access to outdoor space. And yeah, the first time in 41 days they were let out, and it just, Bella wants to get let out now. It showed these kids going out to the park for the first time. And the little boy in the film wanted to go and play football and kick a ball with his dad. And the little girl went and sat in this park, and I think she was picking daisies or flowers. And more than anything, you could just see the relief on the children's faces, that they could feel the fresh air on their face, could feel the grass underneath them, basically be, outdoors, feeling free and not cooped up. And when Metatron showed me that this morning, I then straight away felt that one thing that's going to come in off the back of all of this, I don't know in what time scale, but it's going to be waking more people up to the plight of animals who are in... I don't want to class all zoos as the same, because some zoos are conservation places as well, and do valuable work. But certainly there are zoos which are, not good. And there are places where, you go and watch the dolphins flip a ball, at some sort of amusement place. And these are just places which I don't think have a place going forward in terms of New Earth. So it was the analogy between the children being set out and allowed to be free and to roam in their natural state, and equally the animals who, in some parts of the world, are caged and not allowed to feel the fresh air on their face. And I'm now also being shown animals in laboratories as well. And it almost quite surprises me that I'm bringing through all this information. It's not me bringing through the information, it's just I'm being asked to talk on it with regard to animal rights, because I love animals, of course I do, but I've never been somebody that has campaigned particularly for animals, if I'm being perfectly honest. My young daughter does, but it's never been one of the things that has particularly called me to talk about. But Metatron's saying he's asking me to increasingly do it because I have I'm able to be balanced on it, and because it's such a subject that causes huge emotion around the subject. Some people that are really fighting for animals and being their voice, I'm not talking about people in the mainstream media, I'm talking about just average people on the street, can get so consumed with the injustice and the emotion behind it that they sort of it really can affect them. And I think I'm being protected here by my Aquarian moon. I've got a moon in Aquarius, so I can detach sometimes from subjects and just bring the information through. Doesn't mean that I don't care. I do care, but I'm able to talk about this sort of subject, and I'm able to detach from it, basically. So yeah, there's a message coming through about the animals in laboratories. There's a message coming through about animals in zoos or places where we go to put our noses up against the glass and look at them in captivity. It is a different conversation to that, which is about conservation, but it is a conversation that increasingly I feel on the back of all of this, where we've been cooped up as a human race, we're going to look round at our animal brethren, and we are going to understand a little bit more of what they've been through. And at this moment, I'm going to pause the camera and I'm going to go and get a poem that it was a cousin on my mother's side wrote, probably, oh God, what, 80s, 90s, at least 50, maybe 40, 50 years ago. Her name was Gertrude. Some of you that have followed me for years, you might remember that I used to have this poem of Gertrude's on my first ever website, and it's to do with animals. She was an animal rights campaigner of her day. She also lived over the age of 100, and I have a memory of sitting on her knee as a little baby. I'm going to go and see if I can find a photograph of her and get this poem. I need to read it to you because it's about the animals, and her voice wants to be heard today. So how unexpected, but I'm going to go and find it. See you in a moment. Let's hope I can find it. So I've been up to the loft and I've found a whole load of her letters and her writings. And this is the one that I'm going to read out to you, and it's absolutely stunningly beautiful. This was a lady, here she is. This is her photograph. And that's how I remember her, as an older lady. And I've just found a photograph of her grave. It says she lived to be 100. I don't know where this grave is. I'll have to find out, and I'll have to go and honour her, because actually her photograph sits in my office always. It's been here ever since I started doing my spiritual work. It's so faded. It's like an old sepia photograph. She's there with a cat. I've also just found this in the loft. It's a picture of me and her. That's me. This was her on her 100th birthday. It was in the local paper. It's my mum. I don't know who this little girl is. That was my grandmother on my mum's side. Wow. I'm going to read you this poem. Might choke you up a bit. Just a little bit of a warning. It's called The Cry of the Animals. Dear humans, if you love us as you think and say you do, pray do not take your children to stare at us in the zoo. We are aching for our freedom, we long for space to roam, back in the fertile jungle of our nature forest home. Do not take them to the circus where animals are used, where dogs and horses take their time to keep the crowd amused. Do not think we're trained by kindness, we're trained by lash and rod. Our trainer is our master, but he seldom is our God. Remember, this was written 40, 50 years ago in a very different time, although a lot of it is still the same. And don't you think your watchdog straining on his chain would be a more efficient guard if freedom he should gain? He's such a faithful creature with eyes like deep still pools, a friend with a slave's devotion, a lover whose love never cools. And do you ever wonder, as by the fire you sit, how many ponies lose their lives each year in the dreary pit? And do you know this need not be if you and I refused to have coal from a colliery where ponies still are used? And is it really news to you that the horse who served you well may be shipped off to the continent and end his days in hell? He served you well, then stand by him when his hour for work is past, and give him warmth and shelter and food and a merciful death at last. And can you hear the little bird? Within his cage he sings. He was born to fly 1,000 miles. That's why God gave him wings. A plaintive little captive with a voice so rich and deep, since such a song in prison would make the angels weep. It seems there is no limit to our suffering and our woe. I can't read that next line. But we have said enough to make you realise that we ask not for money when we raise our voiceless prayers to thee. Oh, we ask you for mercy when we raise our voiceless prayer to thee. So we animals beseech you, if your love is really true, to think about these matters and see what you can do to help the cause of justice, to stand up for the weak, the little lesser brethren who can feel. But cannot speak. How ahead of her time was she? How ahead of her time was she? I'll try and write it up, guys, and make it available. I probably didn't read it and give it the justice it deserved, but at least it came with the emotion that she probably wrote it with. She would have wrote it with. Maybe I need to get her poems published in a little book. There aren't that many of them, but they're all good. They're all good. Got like a real pressure on my third eye as I say that, so I need to find the way to do that. I'm going to read you this one as well. This is beautiful. You see, I found these poems when I was about 13 and they really touched me, and I don't know how they came into my possession, but somebody must have given them to me in the family and like, Amanda, you have these. And they touched me at 13 and they're touching me now again at 52. This is lovely. This is one for bringing in the energy of the Christ light to all of us, because she's a strong believer in Christ. It's called Be With Me. Be with me. Come to me in the morning when the dawn breaks over the hill, when the mists rise up from the river and all the world is still. Come in thy wondrous beauty and give me strength for the day, and the mists that gathered at even shall melt with the morn away. Come to me in the moonlight when the midday sun shines hot, when strong is my own self-confidence, I need thee and know it not. When life is so full of radiance and I'm high in the favour of men, in the hour of my wealth, Lord Jesus, be with me and save me then. Come to me in the evening when the stars glimmer out from the blue, when the heat of the day is over, may I still find some work I can do. For many are sad and need cheering, and others have lost their way. Then come to me, Lord, and bring me some useful work, I pray. And stay with me, Lord, when the night settles down and the day is over and past, when my life of happy work is done and I close my eyes at last. Then fold me close in thy strong embrace and flush from my heart every fear, and grant that the dear ones I've loved on earth may be waiting to greet me there. Wow. Well, I'll stop there. I wasn't expecting to obviously read those out. I'd even forgotten I'd got them. So there we go. It's our ancestor. You see, this is a little photograph of her here. She was a matron. Oh, I've got to sellotape this together. She was a matron at a cottage hospital. She would have something to say on the times we're living in now. I'll need to reflect on it and meditate on it. You see the wealth of those that have gone before us, our ancestors. We always think we're the first to discover these ills in our society, whether it's linked into anything. Interesting, I was going to do the video on duality today, and in many ways this is all part of it, isn't it? Because what she was trying to do was be a voice for the animals. She never married. She's called Miss Button. Miss Button. It says Miss Button, I'm looking at the newspaper article, Miss Button attributes her long life to a vegetarian diet. Although she did not start until the age of 40, it seems to have worked. Her cousin told the Gazette that Miss Button had wanted to reach 100 so that the Vegetarian Society could be proud of her. Oh my God. Proud they must be of this strong-willed lettuce muncher, that's what it says, who is an animal lover, belongs to nearly all the animal societies. Among her many telegram cards and presents, Miss Button's most treasured greetings came from the Queen and from Mrs. Barbara Castle, the Secretary of State for Social Services. Wow. Well, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. I'm proud to be your ancestor. How beautiful is that? Well, I don't know really if I can top that. There were other things I was going to say. I will just say one of the things I was going to say because it feels as though it will sink in with the rest of this video. I don't know. Let's just see where else we go with this video. Sorry, it's thrown me. You can see it's thrown me emotionally, but it's a good throwing me because it's like a big heart opening. Maybe let's just have a heart opening here for the animals. Let's bring in the Pink Lotus Heart Chakra Spray. Okay, so let's go into your heart and bring in the pink ray. And as we bring in that pink ray, Let's really soak it up. And let's feel the love of the universe and God for all living things. And of course, this includes the animals. Of course it does. And I think what I'm being shown is, as a human race, we can be very greedy. We think that we are the most important species on the planet and that our needs are the only ones that matter. And what this seems to be about energetically today is a big message from Spirit and a big message from Gertrude to do with animals' needs matter. And all this talk about New Earth and what we're expecting, can we start to carve out a big part of the pie, as it were, pie chart, in terms of what our animals' needs and what do they need for New Earth. And I think if you watched my video on Prince, one of the things that Prince asked us to do was come up with a symbol for New Earth. And each of us has an individual symbol or a colour or a tone or an emotion. And he described it as putting it into a big cauldron pot. And then it's as though God stirs the cauldron pot with all of our wishes, with all of our hopes, with all of our dreams, with all of our best intentions for the highest good, and we create something amazing. And I feel as though what Gertrude's doing here is bringing another pot to the table, and this one is for the animals, and it's to do with putting in the intentions of respect for them, seeing them as equal to us, seeing them as being teachers for us, putting their needs first. So all of those who love animals, respect animals, the biggest ingredient into that pot is love. And it's almost like a recipe for New Earth for the animals. We've done it for ourselves, for human beings. And I'm sitting here and I'm as guilty of this as everybody, particularly in spiritual circles. I'm guilty of this too. When we talk about New Earth, if we're brutally honest with ourselves, sometimes it can be very ego-driven. It can be to do with, even if you think about, we want the proof of the galactics, and it's to do with, because I need to see that, but it feels as though it's very much linked into, it's proof and it's evidence, and it's linked into what I need as a human being, to know that I am not alone, to know that there is something bigger out there. And although that of course is valid, and I understand that, and I feel that too, it's as though, what about the animals in all of this? What do they need? What do they need? And of course, there's a lot of information out there which talks about, like, we come from many different planets. Of course, the animals come from many different planets. Diana Cooper in particular has done quite a lot of work on that, and in terms of trying to channel through information in terms of where particular species of animals come from. I'm not saying I completely even agree with all of it, because I don't always resonate with everything that comes through, but she's had a stab at it, she's had a go at it, and I'm not meaning to dismiss what she's done. I'm just trying to say that as a sovereign being myself, as you are, then what I may pick up in terms of where, for example, I don't know, pigs come from might be different from what's written in a book. And that would be true of anybody, not just Diana, it would be true of anybody. We're sovereign beings. We can link into the energy of any particular animal and ask them, about their origin and where they come from. The days of things being written in books as gospel, I think, are diminishing, to be perfectly honest, because we're just discovering layer upon layer of new information all of the time. But yeah, what about the animals in New Earth? So in terms of our heart, then, what we're really doing is we're pulling some of that beautiful love out from our heart, which we've just put in terms of the pink ray, and we're giving it back to the animals. Okay, that's what we're doing. More to say. Of course, there's more to say another time, but that's where I'm going to leave it today. Okay. Moving on. We're going to move on to a different subject now. Well, slightly linked subject, just about elderly people. I mean, she made 100. In the UK today, they are going to start to record the number of deaths that have been coming in from the virus in care homes. And to be honest, Metatron brought this to our attention how many weeks ago? Weeks and weeks ago. Remember I was talking about the elderly and how their lives mattered just as much as everybody else. Well, unfortunately, there's going to be a lot coming through now about the numbers of people that have been dying in care homes that were not recorded as part of the official statistics. And certainly in the UK, I can only talk about the UK because it's where I am. There's a big spotlight now on the elderly and on care homes and what's happening there. And again, we talk about earth angels. I was watching the news last night and there was a lovely, lovely girl. She was a young girl in her 20s, a auxiliary nurse in an old people's home. And her heart was so pure and so loving, and it showed her at somebody's bedside who was effectively dying. You didn't see the woman that was dying, but she was holding this lady's hand and she was reading out a letter from her family, the lady's family, telling this person how much they were loved, because they weren't able to be around her bedside because it wasn't allowed in terms of government policy. And so this nurse's voice was the last voice that this dying lady heard, and it was so full of love and compassion. And then she was interviewed afterwards, and she was just saying, we've lost so many people in the care home, and she said, but we're being strong for all of those that remain. And I was like, thank you that there are people like you out there doing this work. Thank you. So that ties up that particular chapter of this particular video. I want to just move on now to something completely different, but which is also on my list of things I wanted to talk about today. And it's going to talk about the galactics briefly. Again, if you've watched the Prince channeling, the last part of the Prince channeling, what he brought through was the fact that he kept saying, keep your eyes on the horizon. He was saying, keep your eyes on the horizon. And he was talking about disclosure, and he was talking about Area 51, and that there was going to be much unreleased classified information, which was about to be declassified, linked to Area 51, but also linked into the whole thing about unidentified flying objects and galactics. And the next day, the Pentagon basically released footage of what they're calling unidentified aerial phenomena from 2004 and 2015. I just want to get it up on screen. And they are confirming, basically, that they can't explain it. And I just thought, a few of you have mentioned it to me, and you're right, I thought the timing was really interesting as well, straight after that channeling. But I did just want to read out to you what the pilots that saw these unidentified flying objects said when they saw them, because it's all in the Pentagon report that's just been released. Come on, fire up. Sorry, my computer's a bit slow. Right. Pentagon releases footage to confirm unidentified aerial phenomena. Okay, UFO enthusiasts have known about this for some time, but it's been now confirmed by the Pentagon, and the information has been declassified. So the black and white videos were recorded by Navy pilots, one in November 2004 and two in January 2015. The US Department of Defense has said it's chosen to release the clips officially. One of the clips shows a dark circular object flying in front of a jet. Another shows a small object speeding over land. And the third shows a circular object racing and then appearing to slow down as it approaches the camera. On one of the videos, a voice can be heard saying, this is obviously one of the pilots, there's a whole fleet of them. Another voice adds, they're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots to the west. Look at that thing, dude. So I once knew a pilot, actually, and I can't remember. Or maybe it was a client who was a pilot. Anyway, it was a pilot, and he came to see me once. I think it was a client. It goes back years, and he flew a lot of the, these little light aircraft, because we're quite near the airport here, Bournemouth Airport. And there's a particular place near me. I'm not going to say the name of the place, just because of privacy concerns in terms of, I don't want everyone knowing exactly where I live. But there's a particular place, and he said it's well known in flying circles that there is an awful lot of unidentified flying objects around this particular area. And he said all a lot of the pilots know it. It's just within that circle, it's widely talked about. So yeah, I liked the timing of that. The other thing I just wanted to mention, lots of you have mentioned with regard to Prince, but I thought it was such a cool fact. I was picking up the fact that he seems to have been trained in the school of Merlin, or I think that's how I put it on the video, trained in the school of Merlin, certainly a very in sync energy with Merlin. Well, a lot of you are pointing out that Merlin had a past life also as Saint Germain, and Saint Germain is the one who brings through the violet flame and Prince, of course, brought through purple rain. So I loved that. I just love how everything just sort of syncs together. It's all brilliant. Right, I'm going to end with a card, and then I better get on with my day. Well, you never know what's going to happen with spirit. I tell you what, you switch the camera on, you think you're doing a video about something, and then it turns into something else. Okay, let's have a card for today. I'm using a deck I never use. I don't really know why I never use it. I don't. But it's the Rumi Oracle by Alana Fairchild. But anyway, today it's calling me, so let's have one card. The Lover and the Beloved. Card number 35. The Lover and the Beloved. It is what it is, guys. It's a card of love. It's a card of intimacy. It's a card of reunion. It's a card of being with the one you love. What's on the bottom of the pack? Doesn't really... Layla. I don't know these cards very well, so I'm struggling a bit to interpret them. I'm sure it doesn't mean Layla in terms of Eric Clapton, but that's what I'm hearing. Layla, great song. You got me on my knees. Yeah. What are the lyrics to Layla by Eric Clapton? I'm gonna have to go and blast that out now. Layla. I need to do a twin flame video soon. I realise that. There's a lot going on with twin flames at the moment, because especially twin flames who are in separation, because if you're in lockdown with a karmic partner, then it's bringing a lot to the surface. What will you do when you get lonely and nobody waiting by your side? You've been running and hiding much too long. You know it's just your foolish pride. Layla, you've got me on my knees. Layla, I'm begging, darling, please. Yeah, there's a thing about, I think this is like a twin flame type energy. It's to do with being literally brought down to your knees, surrender. That to me is a card of surrender. It's like surrender, for God's sake, surrender. There is somebody that you're probably meant to be with, and the universe is trying to bring people together that are meant to be together. That's what I feel those two cards are saying. Right, guys, I'm going to get this uploaded because it's now, oh my God, it's 25 to 12 already, and I haven't done anything today, and I've got a lot to do. So much love to everybody. Hope you enjoyed the poetry. And yeah, how cool is it that I've got Gertrude as an ancestor? Brilliant. I'm going to get a frame for that, and she's going to sit there, and she's got a strong energy. She's going to have a lot to say going forward, I'm sure, on all sorts of matters. So seems like I've got another guide, although she's saying I've been around you for a long time. Oh, I did want to mention one other thing, just really, really quickly, and this might resonate with other people, particularly people who've got YouTube channels. I'm getting a lot of requests all of a sudden to do interviews with all sorts of people, and whilst it's very flattering, to be perfectly honest, I haven't got a lot of time, so I'm saying no to 95% of them. I'm also, we're doing homeschooling here as well, so time is of the essence. Just haven't got the time to do everything I want to do. But I had one in today, and it's nobody in the spiritual community, so I'm not calling anybody out in the spiritual community. But it struck me that it was to do with integrity as well, because this particular person was sort of waving like money in my face and saying, you know, I can show you how to expand your channel, you know, threefold. You know, we can make $196,000 in a week together. And here's the proof of what I do. And actually, I looked at the guy's channel and he does look like he does it. And I'm like, really? That there's nothing spiritual about that whatsoever. We don't do this work for money. Money's nice if you get it as a byproduct, but you don't do it for money. You do it because it's coming from the heart and the right place. And, you know, straight away I just heard the word integrity. So I feel as though integrity as an energy is very, very important at this moment in time. You know, when you're being asked to do things, really feel into why you're being asked to do them and what's actually in it for you and what's in it for the other person. And I think co-creation, which is something again Prince spoke about in my last video, co-creation has to be equal, it has to be balanced, and it has to feel right, and it has to be done from the right place. And if you've got two people that are coming at it from a different agenda, i.e. Money over spiritual service, it's never going to work. So, I mean, I saw through that straight away and I've said no, but I don't know, I just feel called to say that because I think there's a lot of it about. I don't think it's just me. If it does tie into what Prince was saying, because he was talking about the fact that loads of people have suddenly got all of these ideas, they want to get going, you know, there's this powerhouse, this horse type engine behind everybody, but be very discerning in terms of who you might link up with or who you might partner with. It's got to be right for you, okay? So stand your ground, stand in integrity, and go for the highest level of co-creation at all times. That's it, guys. See you soon. Next video I do will be the duality one within, I don't know, within a, well, I was going to say within a few days, but, you know, May Day is, as I say, it's weird this year because is it the 1st, is it the 8th? Goodness knows. Maybe it can be both. Much love. Take care of yourselves. Thank you for all your support as always. And I never usually say this, but please do check that you are actually subscribed to my channel, because YouTube is kicking lots of people off my channel at the moment for whatever reason, and it's a bit tiresome. So make sure you're subscribed. Then you'll see what the next video is. Bye bye for now. Love you. Bye.